The downside is everyone's going to look at you and think that you have no idea what you're doing. What's up, guys? It's Stiff Leg. Today we're going to be talking about leverages for deadlifts. All right, we're going to be going over what should your deadlift starting position look like, how will you finish, all that stuff here. All right. So first, start out with here. What determines our deadlift leverages? Okay. A few different things here. It's a little bit more complex than squatting because we also have to incorporate now our arms into it. Okay. So we have our torso length, our leg length, and our arm length. All right. And then we can also go into more depth about our upper and lower legs, so our femur length versus our tibia length. All right. So first and foremost here, we'll start talking about torso. All right. So short versus long torso. What does that mean for our deadlift? Okay. First, the shorter your torso is, the more likely it is that you are going to be able to brace easier. Okay, that means deadlifts are just all around going to take less of a toll on our body. Okay, and think about it very simple here. If I take a fishing pole and I have a fishing pole that is extremely long, at the very end of that pole, it's much more likely to bend. Okay, versus a much shorter fishing pole, it's going to bend less. All right. So it's really as simple as if you are to hold a book this close to your body versus way out here in front of you, you're going to be able to hold it a lot longer, right? It just has to do with how far away is this weight from your hip, okay? So same thing is our leg length, okay? So depending on how long our legs are, that is going to determine how high our hips are into the air, all right? So for some people, they have very short legs, which means that they're going to be much more upright here, okay? We see how close our hip is to the bar here, all right? That means a few things. One, they're going to be a lot closer to the actual bar, meaning a lot less torque is going to be on their back, all right? You're going to be able to use their quads a lot more. You're going to be able to push into the floor. It turns into much more of a push motion than a pulling motion, all right? On the flip side, longer legs, okay? Longer legs is going to mean our hips are going to start much higher up, okay? That's just the way it is. That's the way you're going to feel any kind of tension in your hamstrings here. It's going to make the pull much easier for you, all right? So the longer our legs are in relation to our torso, the higher our hips are going to be, okay? So you might be in this kind of situation here, where basically your back is parallel to ground, and your hips are super high, okay? Now, lastly here, we have arm length, okay? So now depending on how long our arms are is going to depend how far we gotta pull to get the bar from the ground to lockout, okay? Very simple, obviously here, if you just think about it, the longer your arms are, the easier deadlifting is going to be, okay? So what that means is someone could have the same leg length, same torso length, but someone that has shorter arms is going to be much more naturally bent over than this other person, all right? And vice versa. So all these together come to help form our ratios, all right? Now, obviously, just based off that, we know long legs, long arms, short torso, that's going to be our best deadlift ratios, okay? Barring some hip structure things here, the easiest way to deadlift is, of course, having long limbs, short torso, okay? What does this mean for people that have shorter limbs? A couple of different things. One, if you have shorter legs, that is going to mean you're going to be using your quads a ton, okay? So that's going to mean that you're going to be squatting a lot more to build up that deadlift. In relation to, if you're having a longer torso, you got to really be mindful about how much volume you're doing to your legs. It's going to really cause your back to start falling apart if you're trying to do too much, all right? And of course, if we have shorter arms, that just means you're going to be more bent over pulling, okay? Now, obviously the best deadlift form is short torso, long arms, long legs, but there are worse ratios at. Me personally, I would probably say that the having a long torso Long legs, short arms, that probably is gonna be the hardest thing here, because not only is our back gonna take a ton of torque, but it's also having to be so far bent over in order to reach the bar because of how short our arms are. So someone with that type of build's really gotta be super mindful about doing any kind of hip hinge movement. Here, really being mindful of the volume on their back, okay? Now, some workarounds here, all right? We have some advanced kind of deadlifting here. We can work around having a long torso. And even someone with a short torso could potentially benefit from this, and that is rounding our upper back, all right? Now, when I say upper back, I do mean specifically everything, above the rib cage here. We're not talking about, rounding our lower back, but rounding our upper back to make our range of motion much shorter, okay? Put simply, if we're rounding our back here, that shortens the distance from our hip towards the middle of this barbell here, okay? Making this lift significantly easier. The downside is everyone's gonna look at you and think that you have no idea what you're doing, but you're probably gonna be stronger than a lot of people, so that's a plus there. All right, but that's a more advanced technique. I would recommend most people start by actually just learning basic technique before they start trying to, come up with their own stuff. I like the idea of learn the rules before you break the rules, all right? So, what do leverages matter for deadlift here? It's gonna really change what muscles we are actually working, okay? So, put simply here, someone with this build is really going to, their quads are gonna be much more active, okay? They're gonna get a ton of quad volume. They're probably not gonna feel it in their hamstrings nearly as much, okay? On the flip side here, on the opposite end, someone like this, very bent over, hips much higher, their hips are gonna have to be like hydraulic presses, okay? This is going to be almost all hamstrings. You're going to get very little out of your quads. You'll probably be able to use your quads to break the bar off the ground, get it moving, but as soon as it gets about an inch or two off the ground, it's completely hamstrings and glutes, all right? And then of course we have the build where the majority of you all are going to be, which is your proportions aren't too crazy, right? You got about same arm wingspan for as tall as you are. Your legs aren't too crazy long or too crazy short. And that means that we're going to incorporate, a fairly even amount across all our muscle groups, okay? We're not going to be overly dependent on just our hamstrings or just our quads or just our glutes, all right? Now, of course, we can modify the exercise if we want to isolate these more or emphasize them, all right? But with that being said, guys, I hope this really helped you get an idea of, what is the best leverages for you. Hopefully you guys can play around with this, and I'm gonna bring this video to a close. So make sure you guys like and subscribe, and have a great rest of your day.